Alright guys, so here we are for another unboxing, and today we're going to be looking at the Thunder Tiger Bushmaster. Now this is a 1/8 scale, 4-wheel drive, a brushless, kind of dune buggy, desert buggy style of RC. It's got this sort of like a Exo-Terra style, which looks fantastic. I really like the look of it, and I can't wait to actually put some batteries in it and take it out for a spin. Now this guy does come in a couple of different colors. You have the red and you have the blue. Now I did get the red one because I believe red goes faster. That's what people keep telling me, so I'm going to go with the red, and that's what I ended up with. A couple of cool features about this particular one. It is based on, I believe it is based on the Tim Associated RC8.3B, which is now superseded the old 0.2B or 0.2E. Now there is an electric version of that car coming out from Team Associated very soon, and of course Thunder Tiger own Team Associated, so they're obviously sharing the same chassis here. After looking at the buggy a little bit though, this is still running the Nitro chassis, so you'll notice when I flip the body upside down that the chassis actually got a couple of holes that don't have any screws in them. So they may update that later on when the electric version comes out, maybe, perhaps, I'm not entirely sure, but you will see what I mean by that. Also, another cool feature, this guy comes with onboard audio. Now what that means is that it allows you to run the RC with realistic engine sounds, and I know that some people don't really favor this type of technology or this accessory in their RCs. I personally don't have an issue with it as long as it's removable, as long as you can turn it down or turn it off, unplug it, whatever it is. There's really no problem, and you know, a lot of people out there actually enjoy this type of thing, rather than having just a brushless motor going around, to actually have a little bit of an engine sound and add a bit of realism. Much like any other scale accessory that you put on an RC, this is just another one of those things, and that's the way I look at it. But anyway, looking at a box, not very exciting, so let's get rid of this guy, push that over there. And here is the car itself. Now the car did come zip tied in the box. It came very well secured, as well as the remote also came zip tied in there. And watching me sort of cutting away zip ties, I didn't think was going to be very entertaining, so I decided to take it out of the box and do it this way. Now in the box, of course, you get the car, the remote, and you get a couple of bags. I'm going to show you what you get in the bags first, because I know you guys love some of this boring stuff. First thing is a big cross wrench to remove the 17mm hexes or wheel nuts that are on the car. You also have a little bag of what I believe is parts for the steering. I'm yet to find out exactly what these are for, if they're just indeed spares or if they actually change the steering in some way or the angle of something. So I'll do a little bit of investigating about this one later on. We have a little tools bag as well. We got some Allen keys in here, cross wrench, and a couple of wrenches as well to adjust your camber links and toe links. So all of that is included in that little bag. We have a bag full of spare pistons for shocks. Now, given that there are 4 shocks, I can understand why there's so many in here, but I've never actually seen a ready-to-run come with so many spare pistons. I mean, I have seen spare pistons in ready-to-run before, but this is quite an excessive amount. So lots of different size holes in there, and there are even pistons that have extra holes, so you can do an enormous amount of tuning with your shocks. And lastly, we have some preload spacers for your shocks, which means that these shocks are not threaded body, they use preload spacers. Some people like it that way better, others prefer the threaded. I'm really not in favor of either of them. I don't really mind either one or the other. Now, inside the other bag, you have a USB cable. Now, the reason why they supply this is, of course, for your sound module, which allows you to update firmware if you need to, or even download more not more audio files. So you can have different engine sounds in there as well, and get pretty creative with how you want your RC to sound. Little leaflet here for your motor. So that'll give you some information about that. Also have one for the ESC, and last couple of things in here. I'll get rid of this bag just quickly. There's also a bit of a quick start guide for your sound module, so this will help you set it up, choose your sounds, and all of that type of thing. So yeah, I think it's written in Chinese or something on the other side and in English on the front. And then you have a manual for your remote, and there's also the big one, which is the manual for your RC. So if you need to order some parts, there's part numbers in here, there's blown up pictures for you to work out you know, where everything goes if you break something or need to replace something or do any maintenance on the car. Very well illustrated, quite a thick one. So make sure you hold on to that if you, of course, need to do some work on your RC. Now the remote itself is one that's been used both by Team Associated and Thunder Tiger alike for probably about 2 or 3 years now. Couple of things. Number one, this remote's, you know, it's getting a little bit old. I think they need to sort of look at updating this pretty soon. And the other thing, you know, it's starting to look a bit clunky, a bit bulky. Originally, I did like it. I liked that it was different. But now after having so many RCs that come with this remote, I kind of feel like they really need to change it up a little bit. So I'm hoping that the next few RCs, they, you know, in the next year or so, they update this. Because one of the things that I don't like about it, and it's a bit of a pet peeve, is that it runs on 6 AA's. So not 8, not 4, which is pretty much the norm these days for 2.4 gigahertz radios. But it runs on 6. Now it does have a removable tray, which means you can, of course, plug in a separate battery that's rechargeable. But which is something I haven't done yet, and I probably should, given that I have so many remotes here at home. But yeah, that's one of the things that I don't like about it. As far as the styling goes, well, you know, that's subject to opinion, of course. Now, it does have this sort of retro feel on the back here with these great big knobs sticking out. You got throttle trim, steering trim, you got steering dual rate, and you've also got throttle endpoints on either side here, and a couple of reverse switches up the top, on and off switch out the back here. So, you know, it's got this shark fin antenna. It feels okay in the hand. I don't have a problem with the steering of it or the throttle or anything of that nature. I've never had an issue with range either. But just the 6 AA's and the fact that it's looking a bit clunky now, probably getting a little bit old. I think it might be time for them to update this. But, you know, it's a stock ready to run the remote. It's not going to be the end of the world. So, for the car itself, let me bring this guy up close to the camera so you can have a better look at it. Hopefully the camera will do its job and focus in on it, and you guys can have a nice, good look at it. So there's your big front bumper right there. It's got a nice detailed sort of cockpit. You can see the driver in there, which has a bit of a chrome helmet, which looks absolutely amazing. I really like the look at this. I'll keep spinning it around, and you'll see the rear of it here. It's very nicely braced with the wing mount and everything else. It does have aluminium shock caps. They are black. They don't stand out as much. It probably would have been nice to have them in blue, I think, but black is okay. They're a bit stealthy, so it looks good. Now, underneath, I'll show you what I meant about having the nitro chassis steel. So you'll see that there's actually a couple of holes here that don't have any screws in them. And even these ones here, which I would assume that would be where your engine would actually mount, and you can adjust maybe gear mash by sliding that up and down. Well, 2 of these actually hold the battery tray, and the other two I believe hold down a little mounting plate for your ESC. So pretty sure they're still using the stock nitro chassis for this one. All right, let's put this guy on the table and have a bit of a feel of the suspension. Gotta say, the suspension feels really, really nice. Doesn't feel like the front especially feels amazing, feels really good. Probably slightly oversprung on the front, whilst at the rear, it probably feels a little bit undersprung. And I think the reason for that is because it does have the sound module towards the rear. So it's kind of sinking the rear of the car up a little bit. So I suppose, you know, using a couple of those preload spacers, lifting up the rear of the car should hopefully balance that out, I should say. So now, to get inside the car, there's actually really not much to it. There's one body pin right here at the front. I'll bring it up and show you. So you got this guy right there. You remove him, take him out, which actually comes out pretty nicely. It's not too hard to pull out. And then the whole thing just sort of comes straight up, and you can rest the body on top of the sound module, which is back here, and it'll just stay up like that. And you can access your battery and do everything you need to do, you know, without having to sort of hold it up or whatever. So very, very nicely thought out, I think. Looks pretty good. Of course, if you do remove the sound module, you'll find that this may be a little bit tricky to do afterwards. But one thing I did find, and I'll see if I can get the camera to focus in on this. All right, so now that we're all focused in on the inside of the car, you'll be able to see it up close. And I'll give you a bit of a spin around so you can see how the sound module is mounted on. Now, this plate that the sound module is mounted on is all aluminium. There is a body pin back here, and then there's a couple of screws just there You can remove those 2 screws, but you'll need to put them back because that actually holds the top of the diff casing there, like a little bracket. And then you can take out this entire module. But then of course you got to remember that you're going to end up with a great big hole on the back here. So just keep that in mind because obviously the module comes through. Spin it around this way. And you can see the battery tray here. It's got a couple of Velcro straps. And these little catches here are actually right angled. So you'll need to put that on the edge of your battery. So pretty neat. I like that feature. It's a little thing, but I do like it. Now here is where we have the plugs for your battery. Now let me just unplug this quickly. So this will allow you to run two 2S batteries. This does run 4S only. It does have a 100 amp ESC, which I believe is a rebranded Hobbywing Quick Run one. So you should be able to tune it up pretty much like any other of the Hobbywings, I believe. So you can use two 2S batteries, as I said, or you can remove it and use just a single 4S. In here as well, there is another plug, which I'll bring this up to the camera again, and hopefully the camera will continue to focus in. There we go. So this plug here will actually plug to the ESC, and then you can plug your battery into that, and that will actually run your sound module. So if you don't want to run your sound module, you can just leave this this black plug. Well, it's not really black, but it's wrapped in black heat shrink. Leave that out, tuck it away somewhere, and then you can run the RC without actually having the module on. So pretty good how they've done this. With the other sound module that I did get quite a while ago now, it was exactly the same. So you can run the RC with or without it being on. Now, let's move on to some other features here. One thing I will say that my ESC, hopefully if the camera will focus here, the ESC is actually not mounted. You can see that it's actually quite loose. So that's actually come off during transportation. So I'll need to stick that back on. Couple of really cool features. The links that they use here on this car are absolutely huge. I think they're about 5 millimeters in diameter, which is very thick and very beefy. Another interesting thing, has the Ripper motor, but it's in black. But one of the things that I found very interesting here is you can see the center drive shaft. This is the front here. It goes from the center of the diff, it goes out to an angle, so it goes off center. But then the rear drive shaft, don't know if you can see it there, the rear drive shaft will actually go right through, but it goes in on the, well, if you're looking at the car head on, it'll be on the left of the diff, but if you're looking at the car from the rear here, if you're looking at it like that, it's actually coming in on the right. So it's not coming back to the center of the rear diff, it's off on the side. Now, I've never actually had an RC that has this kind of off-center feature on the diffs, but hopefully this is actually a good idea and something that we can probably see more in future RCs. I'm not saying that this is the first one, it's just the first one that I've had. So, you know, very cool thing not to have to worry about sort of bringing the drive shafts off center and then bringing them back to the center diff, so, or to the center of the diffs, I should say. Now, another thing, before I forget, it has these carbon fiber, I don't know if the camera will actually pick this up, but it has these carbon fiber plates on top of the A-arms, because if you have a look at the A-arms, they're solid right through, both front and rear. Very beefy A-arms. Don't see these breaking anytime soon. So you got this carbon fiber kind of put in on the rear A-arms, but then the fronts don't have it. And I'm trying to very awkwardly hold this buggy in here so you guys can actually see. So you see the fronts here, they don't actually have that carbon fiber on the A-arms. It looks like there's a provision for it. You can see the recess of where this carbon fiber is supposed to be, but it's not in there. And I kind of, initially I thought, geez, did they forget to put it in my buggy? And I had a look at a couple of pictures online, and as it turns out, that's how they are, that's how they come. So, don't know why they would have done that, but they did. Another thing, CVDs all the way around. Normally, with some of the recent RCs that I've unboxed, they'll have CVDs on the front for your steering, but they'll have standard dog bones in the rear. This actually has CVDs on all four corners, which which I found is, you know, very cool little feature there. Another thing to note, you have aluminium hinge pin braces. These guys here, if the camera will focus, there we go. So you got them on the front and rear of the A-arms, both on the front and rear of the car. Now, one thing that I want to note is that where the body actually clips onto, so the little body pin that you sort of put on, if I bring this guy back up again, you'll notice that this has just a single body post here. Come on camera, do your job, there we go. All right, so it has just a single body post here. Now, it doesn't feel too flimsy, it's actually quite thick, but I do think it's a little bit vulnerable. I would have preferred to see it somehow integrated with the shock tower to just give it a bit more strength. I don't see it being a huge issue, but I'm certainly hoping it's not. Now, it does have a waterproof receiver box because I believe that this is all waterproof, so you should be able to splash through water, the odd puddle, wet grass, whatever it is that you run your RC on, and not have a problem with this at all. It does have a digital steering servo, which is great, and it has all these little blue aluminium touches everywhere. So if you have a look on top of the steering servo here, come on Mr. Camera, focus, there we go. So if you have a look on top of the servo, you got these little aluminium washers just there, which look very, very cool. And even on the back, just on the wing mount and everything, looks very, very nice. I really like it, all these little touches that they've put on here. Battery tray is non-adjustable, it's just a kind of a fixed size, so you can't really expand it or contract it in any way. You only have adjustment in the height, obviously via the Velcro straps. Front and rear sway bars are pre-installed. You also have great big kind of mud flap things on the back here to protect any debris from going into your shocks or your drive shafts and avoiding any grass or anything sort of getting tangled up in that rear drive shaft, or both of them in fact. You have Standard C-hub steering on the front, so not the pillow bowl setup as with some of the other RCs. Shock towers are actually machined, so if you haven't noticed that before, so you can see it there against the light, these are not pressed. They do look very, very strong. Always nice to see machined shock towers like this. Thick drive shafts too, both front and rear. They look to be about maybe 3.5, 4 millimeters thick, so pretty beefy. Very, very nice. What else can I tell you? I did say that the ESC is 100 amp, which will run from 3 to 4S LiPo. It does have, of course, a center diff. It does run, I think from memory, from looking at it earlier, it is a plastic spur gear, excuse me, onto a metal pinion. And of course, it runs Mod 1 gearing. Plenty of adjustment left over to go bigger on the pinion if you do want to get some speed runs done with this guy. So the motor is actually pushed in quite a bit. I think it's running either a 15 or a 16 tooth pinion, not 100% sure, but it's somewhere around there. Not that they have huge importance. Front bumper, interesting thing about the front bumper, you don't normally see front bumpers on a buggy, but this one actually suits it very, very, very well. And yeah, I think it's a welcome addition, given that it protects your shocks as well, because your shocks are mounted on the front side of the shock tower, so they are very vulnerable to any head-on impacts. Nice to see the front bumper on there. I think I'll close this guy back up again, and we'll close this off with the tires. Now, with the tires, I'm going to say kind of a medium to soft compound, medium to hard compound. But the foams inside are actually quite soft. And that worries me a little bit because I've noticed in the past that when the foams are really soft to begin with, as you use the RC, they kind of get worn down and they get to a point where they get too flimsy and you end up losing a lot of traction later on down the line. So once you have you put a few packs through it. We'll see how they hold up. I don't want to call it just yet, but that's the experience I've had with some of these softer foams. But other than that, I mean, the tires actually don't feel too bad. They actually feel a little bit grippy. Hopefully they'll hold up well. Now, another interesting thing is that they've used short course wheels on this buggy. So you can see it has a small outer diameter here, and of course it has the large inner diameter. Don't know why they've gone with a short course style. I mean, it certainly doesn't look bad. It looks fine, but just, you know, it's a 1/8 scale buggy, or at least it's based on one. I don't know why the short course wheels. But hey, you know, it is what it is. And finally, one of the things I'm going to mention as well is that it has these little bits here on the roll cage, which kind of looks like it's supposed to have some sort of LED bar up here. Don't know if there's something available for it already, or perhaps Thunder Tiger is developing something that you can buy and bolt straight onto it if you do want to do some night driving with this thing, or maybe run it at dusk or dawn or something like that, and you need some additional light. You know, that might actually be a cool feature. I like the buggy. I think it looks very nice. Certainly has some weight to it. I mean, after holding it up above my shoulder in front of the camera for you, I'm getting a bit of a workout. I'm not going to deny that. But you know, I'm liking it. I think it looks very cool. I've seen some footage of it on YouTube already, and I think it has some pretty decent speed. Might need a little bit of tuning in the rear suspension just for the, you know, to compensate for the extra weight of the sound module. Hopefully the sound is actually pretty decent live. I have heard a little bit of it online, and it sounds okay, so hopefully live it sounds even better. You know, the buggy is pretty well equipped, looks very strong, looks well built, and the cockpit design and all the little minor details that they've put on here, first impressions, I'm happy with it. Hopefully it performs as well as it looks. But I'm going to leave it here, guys. Please be sure to check out the video description for more information on the buggy, as well as a link to my Facebook page, which of course, you know, if you go give that a like, you'll stay a couple of steps ahead of what goes on here on YouTube. And I'm going to leave it here. That is it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.